Great.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's start. 안녕하십니까, 이한입니다. 저희 주간 실리콘밸리에서 하고 있는 이제 스타트업들이 벤처 캐피탈에 대한 이해도를 좀 높여드리기 위한 세션들인데요. 오늘은 첫 번째 영어 세션이 될 것 같아요. 그래서 제 친구인 에릭이 허슬 펀드의 에릭이 왔고 오늘 에릭과 함께 영어로 이야기를 좀 해보겠습니다.
Yeah.
Hey Eric, how's it
Hello.
going? Good. Do it
Just
again.
fine. I actually understood all of that. So,
Did you?
uh, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And, this has been a very big year for me as well to reconnect with my Korean identity, spending a lot more time in Korea with some of our investors there as well, but also spending time with you too in Korea and in Silicon Valley. So we always
Exactly.
have great discussions. Yeah.
All right, yeah. And I think, how did we met? Like, I think I met through some of our friends, Young Rock, I guess.
I
Um,
think the first time I interacted with you or heard your name was during a time at KVIC, actually.
oh, Tavik. Okay, okay,
Yeah. We must have met through a couple events there. And then yeah, it was Young Rock Hyung. There's a number of like common friends that we have.
right,
And like the Korean investor community still is relatively small in Silicon Valley, so it's easy to
right,
run into each other. Yeah.
right. And then I was part of a Hustle Fund, the Angel Squad.
Oh, Angel Squad,
I,
yes.
I experienced that through your network and everything. You were very kind to let me into the squad team and
Of
work with
course.
you guys. So it was really good experience.
Lovely.
Let's start on, maybe just quick introduction about yourself, your career,
Yeah.
and a little bit about Hustle Fund, maybe.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm one of the co-founders of an early stage venture capital firm. We focus on pre-seed stage investments called Hustle Fund. But I'll start from the beginning. I'm ethnically Korean. So my parents immigrated from Korea in the late 60s. And then they actually settled in Michigan, which is in the Midwest, in a town called Detroit, kind of a gritty town. So I was born and raised in Detroit, and my dad was a doctor, my mom was a homemaker, had a really typical American upbringing experience. There weren't that many Asian people around me actually where I was growing up. So that's probably one of the reasons why I never really picked up Korean, even though my parents spoke it to me so much at home. And then I was able to move to California in 2000. I attended Stanford. And that's actually when I met my two co-founders at Hustle Fund, Elizabeth and Sheehan. We were all the same year of college. We all met each other when we were 17 or 18 years old. And then over the course of the next 20 some years, at different times, we were co-founders, co-investors, investors in each other's businesses. The two of them are more like sisters to me, more
Hmm.
so than even business partners. And that's been a huge blessing in my life. I spent most of my time building media companies. I have three media companies with three exits and a failed video game company as well. That was maybe the best learning of my career. And then we formed Hustle Fund in 2017 to focus on software businesses at the earliest stages that we get to support and serve. And now we've been doing this for 7 years.
Wow, it's already been 7 years.
I know, right?
Before we get into like sectors and everything about your strategy, but is that actually your background or is that a photo behind you? Like, what's your
No, this is my real space. So I actually do work out of my garage. It's 64 degrees right now, so a little bit on the cold side. I can't convert that to Celsius for my Korean friends yet, in my mind, but it's I've been working here this entire time. Actually, this is a space that's very important for me because it reminds me about the spaces that our founders are also working
Hmm.
from. It's very similar, garages or terrible warehouse offices or their apartment. So it's always a reminder for me of just like, who are we trying to serve here? And I love this background. And my kids come in here a lot. My house is right over there. So
Hmm.
you might see a guest appearance from my daughter or someone else too.
Got it, got it. What type of sectors do you focus on at Hustle Fund?
Yeah.
What do you guys like?
So I'll sort of talk about a broader theme and then maybe some specific sectors. But for any of the folks in your audience who have some familiarity with California's history, I'd say that California became really a huge destination during the 1840s during the gold rush. And so that was when gold was discovered. Prospectors from all over the world, including Korea, would come to California to buy land and try to find gold. But there's this one man who had a store where he sold rope, beef jerky, blue jeans,
Yeah.
provisions. His name was Levi Strauss, the same person who started Levi Strauss blue jeans, which are very popular even today. And he figured out that by selling pickaxes and shovels, basically the infrastructure, that is going to be one of the best businesses to create. And he ended up becoming the wealthiest man of this era. So we describe his company as a picks and shovels business. And
Right.
that is the core theme of the kinds of companies that we like to support. Instead of, let's say, like investing in like an AI business, we have companies that are selling and like marketplaces for like H100 NVIDIA chips. Like, instead of maybe an end user healthcare company, we like the infrastructure for like how do you do lab ordering and testing and provisioning between hospitals and clinics and lab organizations. Those are kind of the infrastructure layers that we like. In terms of the sectors that we look at, we're a generalist fund, but we've had the most success historically around digital health, with fintech, but also many B2B software use cases as well. But we'll look at pretty much everything.
Got it. What's your stage and check size?
Yeah, so we do pre-seed stage investments. So the way that we define it is essentially that first angel round. Our most common co-investor, Ian, is in some cases family members, angel investors, who are usually the first institution. We try to come in well below $10 million of valuation on that first check. And our typical first check is $150,000 into those teams.
Okay. And what are you looking for in terms of deals? Like what type of characteristics are you looking for?
So I'd say this is a great discussion to have, especially for your audience, which I'm assuming is primarily Korean founders.
Korean founders and LPs, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I have most of my family still in Korea, and I'm in close touch with many of my cousins who are now working at Samsung, Goldman Sachs, and other places within Korea. And one of the things I've learned is that in East Asia, or maybe just Asia in general, there's a lot more emphasis, I think, on pedigree. Did you go to Seoul National University? Did you actually end up working at like a Goldman Sachs or a Samsung or, one of these great groups? And and actually that's, I think, a lot of pressure from even our parents who you're growing up, you're going to these like hagwons and you're studying very hard to get into these great colleges, and there's a lot of family pressure as well. That's actually a huge cultural component of Asia, is like, strive hard, get very well educated, try to, earn great livings in these legendary companies. Startups are a very different kind of thing though. In Silicon Valley, at least, one of the cultural differences is that while going to nice colleges and working at fancy places is fine, the actual act of creating something from nothing into a huge company can actually be a highly meritocratic exercise where it's not surprising to find people who have dropped out of college or are coming from a weird place in the world as an immigrant, or have an accent, who go on to build amazing companies.
Right.
What we think distinguishes the very best companies, in terms of the founders themselves, is this quality that we call hustle. So we define hustle as great execution meets high velocity. And more so than where you went to college or where you worked before, teams that are highly experimental, oriented towards growth, are constantly trying to improve the throughput of what they can ship each week, each month, each year, will just grind out great businesses. That's our core thesis at our fund. And the way that we understand hustle is actually by working with the team. So very quickly on the model, we start with a $150,000 check into a lot of teams. We target 250 companies per fund over 3 years. We'll work with a team on a growth project, each one for 8 weeks, related to sales or user acquisition project. We have a school for how we do this. And then in 20% of cases, after you write that first check, run the growth project in a subset of companies. We determined that founder Ian is an amazing hustler. We've had a chance to witness it firsthand through the work that we did together. We'll concentrate a second $200,000 check into that team to make him a core position within our fund. And then that's when we want to talk to other teams like Saze Partners and so forth, just to see whether we can put together a larger round for that company. But our view is that you find a lot of truth by working directly with people. And we've designed a funds model to try to understand that hustle by having that period of work as well.
Yeah, it's funny that Elizabeth, your partner, and we just invested a company together, Sorry Tribe, and we still don't know which college she went.
Yeah.
I never asked her, like, and Elizabeth never asked her, like, nobody asked her about like which college she went. We just didn't care about it. We just care about how what kind of hustle she did to start her own company alone and
Yeah.
had 100,000 users, bootstrapped, no money, no marketing spending at all.
Yeah.
And it was just, I mean, nobody asked about it. That was just a new like approach that we took as well as you guys.
That's
So,
right. And I think this is a good lesson also for Korean founders who start in Korea and maybe want to pitch for money in America. This is actually a topic that you and I were, or that was discussed actually at this Korean consulate event that we met each other a few days ago. Um, so uh, sometimes something that's kind of surprising is a great founder from Korea who did graduate from like Seoul National University, let's
right,
say, comes to America in Silicon Valley, and then they'll start by saying like, I was top of my class at Seoul National,
right.
and there still are VCs in Silicon Valley who are like, what's that? Like,
Exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
know what that college is. Is that
that's
good?
exactly how I see it.
And it's, give them a little bit of grace because maybe they're kind of new to Korea. But I'm like, no, this is like the Harvard. Like it's nearly impossible to get into that college, right? So, but it's disorienting, I think, for those kinds of founders who are like, wait a second, like none of this stuff is being asked of me. Like, who's your family? Like, where
Right,
did you
right,
work
right,
and so
right.
forth. Uh, when you come to Silicon Valley, because it's much more of a judgment of, your potential of hustling something really big. And that's an idealism of meritocracy that I really do enjoy here in Silicon Valley, is this idea that anyone can come here, and if they can show like a lot of hustle and show some results just by how hard they're working to show that output, like, yeah, why not? Why can't anyone build a great company?
Mm. I think I also love your strategy, like working with the founders for at least a month or years to figure out if this person really has it in it, like to
Yeah.
be a successful founder.
Yeah, and this is actually born out of an observation that I made from recruiting and hiring. So I've been a founder for a long time. I've hired a lot of people, but sometimes like you meet this person, well, let's name him Eric, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, like there's this engineer who's going to join my team. He's got like a PhD from Stanford. He worked at Google, and he's interested in joining me. Like, awesome, let's do it. And then you actually begin to work with that person. And then it's through the work where you're just like, oh my gosh, this Eric guy is actually a little bit dumb or slow or entitled or just like has a terrible attitude or whatever it is, right? So I have been fooled before by
Right.
people who like had amazing pedigrees who ended up being utterly disappointed. And then the opposite has been true too, which is like I meet this founder, let's call him Ian, right? Let's pretend that he dropped out of high school like when he was like
Right.
15. But then we take a risk on him, and then he turns out to be one of the best engineers we've ever worked with, to the level where we're like, maybe he can be actually our head of product someday, because
Mm.
like he's just so promising and can learn so fast. I witness this stuff all the time, but it's only from working with people. If I had to make that judgment based off of just an initial pitch of just
Right.
is Ian a hustler, is Eric a hustler, I have no idea until I've had a chance to actually work with these people.
Got it. But how do you pick the ones that you want to start working with? Like
Right.
what are you looking for?
Yeah, great question. It's remarkably simple. So, for your audience, I think there's something that's important to understand when it comes to the difference between an early stage investor like Ian and myself versus,
Mhm.
let's say, like a growth stage investor, let's say a pre-IPO thing. So, let's say that Ian and I were running a pre-IPO growth stage fund. We invest in checks at the Series D level or something. I would
Mm.
argue that the right skill set for that is probably ideally we were like former bankers or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're going to look at like your profit and loss statements, your cash flows, your LTV to CAC ratios, EBITDA, all of these things that are essentially components that you're going to need to worry about when you become a public company, I think matter at the later stages.
Mm.
But at the early stages where Ian sits at Saze Partners, where I sit at Hustle Fund, none of these data exist yet. There's
I
no
know.
product market fit. So what we're trying to understand is our belief in the potential that this is a team that is going to figure out how to grow into a great company. And for me, what 0.7% of the companies that get our initial investment can demonstrate are really proving five things. team, problem, solution, market, traction. So team is very simple for me. It's, do they seem to possess the relevant skills for the market that they're trying to serve? If they're co-founders like Ian and Eric building in this company, do they have a history of working together to show that like this is actually a solid partnership and a complementary partnership? I mean, this is the most important assessment, which is, do I think that this is like a really smart team that has a history of working together that can figure out a lot of stuff? I say that's almost like 60% of my assessment is like, do I believe in this team, or do they excite me at least? The problem, it's not just enough to have a great problem statement, but we want to see, a lot of customer discovery. If Ian and I are starting this company and we say like, we're gonna solve this problem, and we spoke to like 1,000 people, like we're obsessed with this. That for me is like a founder who's demonstrating that he or she is on a mission to really solve this thing. It's almost like greater than money. It's like they have to make this thing happen. Those are exciting founders to work with and tend to actually grow great companies. The solution, if you're a founder looking to pitch either Saze or Hustle, it's okay if your product is really raw, if it doesn't even look that good. But we're going to want to know, like, why did you prioritize these initial features, and how are you going to grow from there to get a sense of your thought process for how you're thinking about growing your platform or service or products. The market has to be enormous. It has to be measured in the billions of dollars. Both Ian and myself have to return lots of capital to our own investors that we're using their dollars to invest into you. So we can't invest in small markets. It has to be big. And then traction, we don't expect necessarily at Hustle Fund that you have like $1 million in revenue at this point, but we want to have a good sense that you have a clear sense of the go-to-market strategy. Like, how are you going to sell these things? Through what channels? Why do you believe that these are the right places to begin? How do you expand? For me, I think a great founder that I like to serve is as excited, if not slightly more excited about sales and marketing as they are about building great products. Because we think that is actually the long-term differentiator of a great team, is that they love to sell and know how to sell. And those are the 5 criteria that we really look at. And 99.3% of the companies that we hear can't really answer those 5 pillars very clearly.
Okay, that's really clear. How do you guys make decisions internally? Like, what's your decision-making process look like?
Yeah, so I'll actually share a little bit about the partnership structure, and then as it relates to this model. So our fund, when we got started in 2017, was modeled after Benchmark Capital. They're actually our all-time favorite fund in the industry. What Benchmark Capital does is sort of unique. They have an equal carry, equal partnership model, equal carry, equal salary partnership model, which means that if Ian and I were modeling our fund around Benchmark, he gets 50% of the carry, I get 50% of the carry, we're paid equally the same. So we do this with our fund too. Like me, Elizabeth, and Sheehan all have the exact same salary and then the exact same carry share. So if I invest in, let's say, a founder, Ian, and let's say that he ends up being like $100 billion outcome, I don't get the majority of that carry. It's equally shared across our partnership, which is a slightly unusual model in venture capital. But what this means is that it invites lots of collaboration, because Elizabeth and Sheehan have the same amount of economic incentive. All of us want to spend time in serving a great founder that's breaking out. So the way that this relates in an interesting way into our fund's model, I'll actually introduce like a saying that I think I once heard from Charlie Munger, the former business partner of Warren Buffett. He died at 99. He said that if you want to make a lot of money in business, you have to be both contrarian and right. Right. That's in like non-obvious businesses, but if you're right, you're going to make an insane amount of money. And so the way that we operationalize this along with our partnership is any investor on our investment team is allowed to write a $150,000 investment into any company, the initial investment, without consulting anyone else.
Wow.
And the reason why we do this is we think that the first check is not a place where you need to get consensus. Often, Elizabeth or Sheehan do not like my companies in the beginning, and I have actually expressed a lot of discomfort at times with their companies too. But we want to create a natural initial level of argumentation in a very like friendly and cordial way, but like we want to be able to contradict each other a little bit. But when we write that second concentrated investment, let's say that I invest in Ian, and then we're showing that like this guy clearly is a hustler through the data, through our interactions with him. When we write that second $200,000 check into that subset, all of us raise our hand to have unanimous consent of saying like, we will all back him
Mm,
because we share that equal salary, equal carry thing, which is
mm,
like, okay, we're all committing at this point to support this founder. And what often happens in this model are that companies that we argued a lot about in the beginning sometimes end up being our very best consensus core checks. I'll give you an example of this. One time, Elizabeth in Fund One
mm,
invested in a cat hotel.
mm.
Okay, so like Ian goes on vacation to Korea and he's like, I have a cat. I'm gonna put my cat in the cat hotel for 2 weeks as I enjoy Christmas, right? And I was like, I was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, where is the tech behind this?
Right.
Like, why would you do this? Like with our hard-earned dollars, right? Or our LP's dollars. And then she's like, I believe in the founder. She's starting with this thing, but I'm telling you, like, we need to be patient with her.
Mm.
This company is now called Meowtel. I think they're doing something like 10 million a year now because
Wow.
now they're essentially like a marketplace for cat sitting. Like
Mm,
she's been able to grow through lots of experience. I've had a chance to interact with her a lot. She has some of the highest throughput I've ever seen in terms of experimentation and execution skill. She barely spends any money. She's frugal as hell. And she
mm.
is just growing her company and has a good sense of how to do this consistently. And I think it's going to be, I think, a great returner for our fund as a result. So again, an example of just like, I did not believe in this cat hotel company or this founder. Through the work of interacting with her, I became a believer. And
Mm.
now we're in a position where like all of us are excited to support her.
I think that's really right. I mean, VC is a parallel game. It's all about finding the outliers, and you
That's
can't
right.
have business on every outliers that you find. So I like your model and how you guys think about, replicating what Benchmark is doing, sharing the equal carry so that you promote, collaboration between founders and partners.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's right. And I think, you and I we've shared a lot of stories in the past and we know a lot about a lot of our VC funds. We're not going to name names here, but I have seen the breakdown of culture with some big funds
Oh,
where
that
it's
happens.
like Ian has a deal, he's getting 80% of the carry and the 20% shared with the rest. It's like, oh, well, Eric, you're like, my founder needs your expertise, Eric. Can you help this person out? And I'm like, why would I spend any time on this? Like, I need to worry about the stuff that makes me money. That's where you get a lot of politics.
That's the hardest part when you're like scaling your VC fund, and when you hire somebody, the dynamics change, the culture
Uh,
changes.
yeah.
So yeah, that's why I don't think there are a lot of dynasties in terms of VCs. Like the generation change is hard, and there's always some politics inside of a house.
That's
I'm
right.
thinking about writing a newsletter about this because people don't
Mm,
understand what's going on in the VCs in their IC. Like there's always this small like politics and incentive alignment, misalignment of incentives in there. And I've seen
yeah.
that as an LP for a lot of the VCs have going the same thing.
Yeah.
And what you guys are building is really good. But at the same time, it's just something that you can do because you guys been spending so much time together from college. It's just hard to find somebody that aligns to that extent that you would trust and work together.
So I'll push back on that a little bit, Ian, which is I don't see any reason why other funds with a lot less history of the partnership can't do the same thing. I mean, like Benchmark's a good example of that. They still
Right.
include like new partners and they just immediately start giving them this generous compensation package. So it's ways to it works really well. But I will say this, which is um it makes our hiring to your point really,
Right.
really careful for us because
Exactly.
the most important question I can ask myself in this job whether I'm investing in a founder, taking an
Mm,
LP's money, and especially adding someone to our team, is do I want to grow old with this person? Like,
mm,
it's not enough that I'm like, okay, Ian has amazing complementary skills. Let's say he's like an AI PhD and all that stuff, and I like him. It also has to be like, do I actually think that his personal values align with mine?
mm,
Like, when we get to that level, we start to really try to understand even things like how does he relate to his spouse if he has kids? Like, do we actually like even like understand their
mm,
values in terms of how they're raising their children? As
mm.
as weird as this is, I can definitely state that like if like me and my wife were to disappear tomorrow, and that I pray to God that doesn't happen, and Elizabeth or Sheehan were to become like their parents,
Mm.
I'd feel 100% confident
Mm.
like my kids will be fine because first of all, that's not going to happen. They're going to go to one of my sisters or something.
Right,
But
right.
like, but I'm just like, it's so clear.
Your level of confidence.
It's such a high level of confidence. Or I'll give you a more like less intense version of that story.
Right.
A very classic. I can share like a little bit of embarrassing fact here. Whenever I sit down for dinner at a restaurant, one of the first things I want to do is just go to the bathroom to pee. Like for whatever reason, it's like a response. It's just like I go to the bathroom, I sit down, and I'm like, I think I gotta go to the bathroom, and I want to
Uh-huh.
wash my hands and all that stuff, right? But so normally when I'm eating dinner with Elizabeth or Shein, um, I come back and the menus are gone because they already ordered the food for me. They know exactly what I would want to eat, what kind of wine I'd want to drink with it.
Yeah.
And like they just did, and they're 100% correct every time because like it's such a level of alignment that we've been able to establish. Now, that took a long time. I don't think you need to have that with your partners, but I guess like this is actually a great tip for even our Korean founders here too. Look, we're talking about VC funds, me and Ian right now, but this is at the same level of threshold that you need to have with your co-founder who's
And
going to
that,
be like a
that
brother or sister to you. It's the same
yeah.
thing.
Hmm. That's why I think it's really hard to build something that what you have. I mean, how would you find somebody that would have the same level of confidence and trust that you have with Elizabeth and Sheen? It takes a lot of time. Yeah, I mean, long
Yeah.
time.
Well, I'll give you actually our highly unique strategy for how we recruit.
Yes,
That
that'd be
that and actually this isn't something that a lot of people can replicate. So, Ian, you've mentioned Angel Squad,
mm,
where you've interacted before. So, taking a step back here, Angel Squad is this community of 2,000 angel investors. Many of them are new to angel investing. So, typically, actually, people with a lot less experience than Ian, actually. But they tend to be senior operators at places like Meta or, Google or other places, or they're doctors and lawyers. They come from a lot of walks of life. So, we train this community on how to angel invest. We open up investment opportunities where they can invest directly into our companies as well through a couple mechanisms. And it's a vetted community of really good people who like to lean into each other for advice and careers, starting companies, whatever. So, how we recruit now, especially on the investment team, is we're constantly observing Angel Squad. We're trying to see who's coming to our events, who's turning into a really good ambassador for representing the values of and questions that we like to ask ourselves. We'll then invite a subset of these people to become venture fellows.
uh-huh.
These are essentially interns, and we typically cycle through about 10 per quarter, where they can join some of our investment team meetings, they can source deals and so forth. We can collaborate on events and some things like that too. This is actually how we've been able to find people like Haley, our principal on our investment team. She started an Angel Squad, became almost like a community leader, and then we recruited her to join our investment team as a principal. Or people like Jamie, who's now running Hustle Fund Scale. She runs a growth stage fund that's a little bit arm's length from Hustle Fund, but started Angel Squad. We discovered that like she's brilliant and has a great thesis in how she wants to serve founders who are much later than us, and then we helped her to put together her first fund for that one too. So um, it's awesome because it's a little bit like dating before marriage in our view, where we can have a lot of interactions over months actually with people before we can determine like is there a role that we should set up with that person. So I think
Hmm.
the only way that you really get to that kind of level of trust, it doesn't have to be 24 years, is just almost like the same Hustle Fund growth project. Just having that experiences of a lot of collaboration together.
Right.
It has to be maybe over months or years in some cases. And then, that's going to be the way that I think you can find like that level of support among your
I
team.
like it. Yeah, you're actually spending time with your future recruits, like through your hustle funds.
Yeah.
And it's exactly how you do when you're investing in companies too. Hmm.
I think it's, man, this is like life, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
spend time with them.
yeah, I mean, I've been with my wife for 22
Hmm.
ish, something like that years. But
Wow.
like we dated for 6. I probably knew after year 2, I was like, dude, she's the one. But like, that we took our time, to get married. And then after that, another 5 years before we decided to have kids.
Wow.
So like it's those kinds of things are just like, some things aren't worth really rushing, you
Hmm.
know? Yeah, that's just maybe life. I
I
don't know.
think that makes sense. Let's talk about your portfolio management or support. Like, how do
Yeah.
you support your companies and founders?
Yeah, great. So what I think is pretty neat To answer that, I might need to give a little bit more explanation about like how we set up Hustle Fund
Yeah.
because it directly relates to the portfolio management.
Sure.
Um, I'll start with this high level philosophy, which is, you know, back in 2005 when I began as a founder, fundraising was actually in some ways very simple. You would
Hmm.
just go to Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park, California, and then where Ian's old office was, I think. And then like there were maybe 100 venture capitalists, like 100 firms that actually mattered. So you just try to set up as many meetings as you can with these hundreds of dudes, and they're mostly dudes at the time.
Right.
And then you would see if like anyone would give you any money. I did this, most didn't say yes, some did, and then that's it, right? Now, let's fast forward like close to 20 years later to the present, right? There are thousands of venture capital firms. There are more angels than ever. So while this might be a more capital constrained environment, there's still like a lot of entities that have capital that are trying to deploy into founders. So our view is that capital is a commodity. You know, the
Mm.
150,000 that we're offering you at Hustle Fund is the same 150,000 that Saze Partners is doing, is also the same $150,000 that your dentist who likes you, who wants to be an angel, is it's like the same amount of money, right? So our view is that if you're going to differentiate as a fund, you need to invest in three pillars that we invest in, which is capital, knowledge, and networks. And this starts to answer the question that you have, about how we support our portfolio or why even like founders want to work with us. So capital, it's pretty easy to understand. This is the money that we're offering you as a VC. So $150,000, $200,000 later for subset. The knowledge and networks, though, is where it starts to get really interesting. So uh, we have 4 people on our investment team, but 30 other people who are journalists, marketers, event producers, primarily at Hustle Fund. So this includes our newsletters. This includes our ebooks business. This includes our YouTube channel, includes Angel Squad, our angel investor community, a variety of other these kinds of functions as well. Events, we're doing 60 events per year next year. Our view is that, if we aggressively produce content and experiences that reach founders at the early stages, this is going to be a great way for us to grow brand and get deals. And I think that's working. We get about 1,000 deals a month now at Hustle Fund through that kind of sourcing mechanism. But this is also how we support our founders. So if founder Ian were to approach us and say, like, why should I take your $150,000 versus anyone else?
Yeah.
Our answer to you is because we're going to help you get your first million in revenue.
Mm.
And then how we start to get closer to that it's not a promise, it's actually like a goal, is because we reach 500,000 subscribers a month across our content and our events and so forth, we're going to start to promote your services and your business through our newsletters channels, through our YouTube channel, through our events as featured speaker. Like we're going to try to actually get your company out through the channels that we've owned 100% ourselves. We don't have to pay a platform fee. You don't have to pay Meta, or you don't have to pay us. Like we'll just do that with you. And in addition to that too, if you need specific help, let's say that Ian is building a healthcare company and he's trying to get private health insurance to cover his patients. I don't know how to do that, but I reach into Angel Squad and I talk to people like Erica Pabo, who's the chief health officer at Humana Healthcare, one of the largest health systems in the United States. And I try to set up meetings between our founders and specialists within Angel Squad to help
Mm.
answer those questions. So my job in serving you as a portfolio founder at Hustle Fund is largely a concierge. I usually don't have the answer, but
Mm.
I know how to get the people that have the answer directly into you through our communities. And I also know how to promote your services through the channels that we own and are growing at Hustle Fund as well.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So I think this might be the last question. What kind of VC would you like to be? What's your North Star as a VC?
Um, it's a very interesting question, and I think I'm going to answer this in a weird way.
Uh,
So,
you're always
so
weird. It's fine.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I think one of the things that I've been noticing, especially in the past few years, is a celebration of this idea of like the brilliant jerk.
Mm.
So this is someone who might be exceptionally intelligent,
Right.
but maybe less caring about how they treat other people, right?
Mm.
It's just like, I'm going to work you to death, and then, but it's going to be a great ride together. Or I'm going to be I'm going to be a bit of an asshole, actually, because my expectations are super high. And that is I can't dispute that there have been great examples of
Right.
brilliant jerks have gone on to build like
Tesla.
change, yeah, like Elon Musk, like I
Yeah.
kind of put him in that category. Steve Jobs even I'd
Yeah.
put into that category. I think like they have good intentions for like
Hmm.
what they're trying to build in terms of Elon Musk trying to like save humanity. I think that's his goal. But no, it's not someone I would want to work for.
Mm.
I think what I would love to have as like my brand as a VC, my North Star is a different kind of view, which is you don't need to only celebrate the brilliant jerks, but there are plenty of super kind, super sincerely excellent human beings who also happen to be exceptionally talented
Mm.
founders too that we need to celebrate. I'll give one example of this. Like my very first angel investment check that we rolled into Fund One, it was Webflow. Webflow is a no-code builder for web apps, right, and websites. Currently like at a $6 or $7 billion valuation. So that was the very first angel check that I ever wrote. When I talk about Vlad, Bryant, Sergi, the founders, they're like the best humans, like some of the best humans I've ever met in my life. Super kind, super awesome. It doesn't mean that they're not aggressive.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that like they don't know how to hustle hard and like ship like great products and like do this in a highly competitive environment. They are killers in their own way. But when you talk about the people in their culture, everyone is like pretty well served and
Right.
actually have a lot of love for them because like they're great humans who happen to be super talented. I want to serve founders like that. That's like the Hustle Fund portfolio. And in the process of doing that too, show that kindness is not like a weakness here. Kindness
Mm.
is actually a strength that we should all celebrate and try to make actually the venture ecosystem, but also the founder ecosystem a little bit more kind. And
Mm.
and I think it starts with just like serving those founders, presenting a lot of use cases of that as a successful model, and then showing that like, we can be like really nice human beings to each other and still make a lot of wealth together, make a lot of great change together too.
Mm. I like that. I think that's very Silicon Valley. I mean, used to be the Silicon Valley value that we always had, but
Yeah,
I think it's changing a little bit. I mean, maybe not changing, but it's actually showing their true colors when
sure.
things get really harder.
Totally.
That's something that I'm writing about on my newsletter. People are talking about Silicon Valley being more, changing into more, right wing and all this kind of politics and kind
Yeah.
of. My thesis is Silicon Valley never changed and it's not changing. It's just, it's all about money. People are showing true colors when there's not enough liquidity. There's not
Yeah.
there's not enough IPOs. There's not enough M&As, and they're feeling they're being cornered. So they're now showing who actually they are and supporting and I don't know, going for different politicians and kind of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
always that it's capitalism, but at the same time, there are a group of people like you who still cares about kindness and being a good human. I don't know.
Yeah. And Ian, you too, man. Like you've been wildly generous to us at Hustle Fund as like a friend, like a collaborator for so long. And there are a lot of people, I think, like in this side of the table still that
Right.
like holding those kinds of values as important. And here's like the thing I do love about Silicon Valley that keeps me really addicted to it. Money is obviously a very good big component. Like, and I do think that if you're going to take this level of risk as a founder, as an investor, you should be rewarded for it in a huge way
Yeah.
because this is a very different kind of thing than like being even like a great product manager or marketer at like a big company. It's just entirely different.
Right.
But what I will say is that I still think that the majority of founders who get into this game are doing it for a mission
Mm.
because there are easier ways to get wealthy. Maybe not 100 millions or billions of dollars, but like, tens of millions,
Right.
than doing this. And the stress that you're putting on your body, your mental health, your families is so obscenely difficult.
Mhm.
Like why would you put yourself? It can't only be money that's driving you.
I
And
agree.
that's something that I think is so special about being in Silicon Valley, living here with you,
I
is
love
just
it.
like you get surrounded by those people who are on a mission that's even greater than money. I don't think Elon Musk is actually like at this point caring about his dollars, but I'm
Mm.
pretty sure he's working his ass off on like a zillion companies because like, as much as I disagree with him on like a lot of values here, I don't I still think he has a view of where humanity needs to go that he
Exactly.
think he's uniquely positioned to take it to. And I will respect him always for that.
Yeah, I think his own mission. That's what he wants to do. He wants to change the human beings and make it a better place for everybody. But still, like the way he's executing it gets a lot of I guess attention in many different
Exactly.
ways.
Yeah,
But still, like I agree. I mean, he has his own mission, like everybody has, and I think that's the beauty of Silicon Valley.
it's wonderful here. Yeah. So I want to see more Korean founders who are listening to
I
come
really
over here
want to
and
see more
join
Korean
us.
founders too.
It's increasing. We are seeing more and more Korean investors, more Korean founders who are starting to take roots here. And it's a powerful community. And it's only going to get better and better.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think that's all the questions I had today, and it's always nice to hang out with you,
Yeah,
Eric.
man.
I really enjoyed our conversation in Seoul when you came to our event and spoke in front of our 150 LPs in Korea. So let's keep doing this. It's fun.
I'd love that, man. I mean, Ian, I've been such a huge fan of you. I speak for the team for all these years. Again, like always so generous with the support, but like this is actually, I think for like the founders out there, like a great example of, I think the Silicon Valley culture that hopefully you're picking up with guys like Ian. You know, in Silicon Valley, one of the things that you have to shape is like this notion of like karma, which is
Mm,
like if you just put a lot of good out there and just help people without an expectation of any return, like somehow the universe kind of rewards you, right? And I feel like for some of my family in Korea, the younger people working, they're a little bit more cynical of just
right,
like if you help me, you like if I help you, you're gonna help me, and like this is a transactional value here. That's
right.
something that you have to unlearn a little bit here, and
Mm,
which is why like Ian has always been so generous about like yeah, I've putting together this event, this dinner, like this podcast, this join. He's not asking for us anything in return, but I know the universe is rewarding him, and we do feel like we want to be part of that universal force that rewards him too, because he's just a good dude who's just like putting a lot of good out there. So like, he deserves to be rewarded. And
mm.
and that's something that I want more Koreans to feel. I really
That's
want them to feel that.
Yeah, and I'm doing this because it's fun. I love hanging out
Exactly.
with you, and sometimes arguing about topics and working together on a deal together. It's just I love being around you. That's the
Yeah,
whole point.
man.
You know, life is too short to be around people who you don't like. Like spend more
Appreciate
time
it, dude.
in
Yeah.
life. So anyway, it's been great talking to you, Eric. Let's hang out more. Thanks for your time today. And what about people who wants to contact you? Should I give them your email or what's the
Yeah.
best?
The best way to reach us is we standardize all our interactions with founders who are trying to engage with us about funding at hustlefund.vc. That's the easiest. And then follow me on Twitter. I'm just at Eric Bahn, or on LinkedIn. We put a lot of content out there as well. But hustlefund.vc has all the answers for how to engage with our team.
I'll put that on the comment list.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thanks so much, man.
Okay,
Talk to you later.
감사합니다. Have a great Friday.